Alright, so hey all, what is up? Piskel here and welcome back to my channel. This video is going to be going over a game that I'm working on. So this is Ashenheart, which is a 2D top-down RPG, kind of like Zelda or Pokemon, like in terms of like its art style, and more like Zelda in gameplay. So yeah, like it is going to be a very simple top-down RPG. You could call it like like JRPG inspired, if you consider Zelda a JRPG. I think it is. Is it? Probably, right? So it is very much like a 2D JRPG inspired game, but I can't really call it a JRPG because like you would have to be a Japanese developer to call it a JRPG. So PRPG it is. Just kidding. So this is going to be the first game that I release commercially on platforms such as Steam, Google Play, as well as, like itch.io for about $2 to $5 depending on how it ends up, which is a fair price in my opinion. And basically I began making this game as a semester project for my game dev class at university. So like I'm in my 7th semester of software engineering, and um, yeah, like I was given the option to either take game dev or machine learning, and I went with game dev, of course, because it is the very thing that I want to do, and I wanted to do all my life. And I was only given the opportunity to take this subject in my 7th semester last year. That is crazy, right? So, I went ahead and I started working on Ashenheart, which is, as I said, like a 2D top-down JRPG inspired game. And once I'm like done with like the semester project and I'm able to like present it and like get it graded and stuff, I will expand upon this and make this even better. And that is probably when I will actually like release it. So for now, like the scope is very small, very teeny tiny to like fit into like 2 weeks of like development time, because I need to present it like in the first week of June, I think. And that is coming, right? So I only have a week to develop something that works like a prototype. I still haven't implemented any real combat or any real UI, or collisions, so all of it is like very primitive, but it is a very fun experience because I'm finally able to see how it feels like to make something from start to finish in a tight deadline. Even though I don't really like deadlines, but this will give me um like an experience of like what it's like to develop a game from start to finish when you are faced with a deadline. Because yeah, like even though I've worked like with and among people in game dev in the past, like on various projects, I never built a like a game or a product from start to finish and released it. Like I've never done that. Like, even though I have experience working in game dev in both 3D and 2D, I've never actually made something completely like of my own. Everything, all of it which you see, like all the characters, like some of them are, like pre-made, or these assets, like the tile sets, they're not mine, but like I learned how to use them in the most efficient, effective way possible, and all the code which binds everything together, all of that is made by me. And eventually this will have like a wide variety of areas to explore, like enemies to destroy, bosses, whatever, and a very amazing soundtrack which will complete the experience like which I want to create for Ashenheart. And I will pitch this as my first game. So like this is our main character, Princess Cindy, who is the princess in a kingdom called Eloria. Alright? And she holds the power of ice and fire. Fire and frost. Alright, so basically there is this magical artifact or relic in this universe called the Ashenheart, which controls the balance between fire and frost. And our main villain, who is like at this moment known as Vulcan, basically like stole the fragments of the Ashenheart and caused an imbalance in all of Eloria. And the villain Vulcan has taken away the balance of nature, and that has basically caused monsters to like spring up in various places, in forests, in dungeons, in like all of these mystical places in Eloria. And our main goal is to defeat all of those monsters and defeat the bosses and eventually get to Vulcan and fight against him, basically, like confront him and retrieve the fragments of the Ashenheart which were stolen. And once we do that, we will basically, yeah, that is going to be the end of the game. But how we get to it is going to differ for my semester project compared to the actual final game. So the semester project will have only like about 7 places to explore, and like a very small number of enemies, like not a lot of boss battles, and we'll be able to like get to the end in about like 1 hour of gameplay or even less, because it is supposed to be something to present in class, alright? But for the actual game, it is going to be much more expansive, and I will build upon this, make this better and better, and hopefully you all will enjoy it very much. So yeah, right now there isn't really much to it, so I will just show you some very basic sample gameplay, alright? Alright, so here we are in the Cindy house interior scene, which is going to be where the game begins, in Cindy's house. Cindy is our cute little princess main character, alright? And, well, like everything that you see here is going to be experimental. It is all gonna change in the future, so don't judge it based on just this. Like, all of this is like just for experimentation to make sure that our player has like an environment to like move around in, you know? Alright, so you can see that our player is able to move around very nicely with very good animations, and I still need to fix some bugs and glitches, such as this unwanted diagonal movement, because nobody needs this in a like a 4-way, like 4-directional movement game, you know? So aside from that, everything is working extremely well. The movement is nice and fluid, it is snappy, and the animations play correctly because I used blend trees and some really nice tricks like in code to make everything work based on our movement direction, like which is taken from our movement input itself. So like from the horizontal and vertical axes, the blend trees are always like looking for those two parameters, like our horizontal and vertical movement, and they are animating Cindy going from like an idle state machine to like a walking state machine based on those two parameters using blend trees. So like you can see that I've got 2 blend trees in my base layer, so like going from entry to idle and then from idle to movement and then back, and both of them are blend trees. So like I can go inside idle, and the idle blend tree is basically going to, you know, like if we try to like visualize what this does, I can go here. Let's take a look at how she kind of, you know, like moves based on these parameters. Like these are set inside the code, so based on our movement, horizontal, vertical, speed, last horizontal and last vertical change, and that dictates which idle animation to play using the idle blend tree. Alright, so you can see that if I move this thing around, she moves around. Perfect. And like just like this, we also have our movement blend tree, which works much the same. So let's take a look. So basically, like whenever you press a movement key like W, S, A, or D, or like the D-pad on a controller or the arrow keys, you are only like sending certain values to the game to use, alright? And those values range between -1 and 1. They switch from -1, 0, and 1 on a keyboard, like static discrete values, and they range from -1 to 1 when using a joystick or like a controller, right? So I'm getting those values by using the input.getAxis raw, horizontal, and vertical, which will basically give me the values like either -1, 0, or 1, depending on which button is being pressed for movement. And based on that, like if I press D, then like horizontal is going to be set from 0 to 1. If I press A, then horizontal is going to go from 0 to -1, and so on and so forth. And these parameters in my animator controller, they are basically not directly related to what is going on inside the code, but I am updating them through the code based on the same exact thing. Alright, so TLDR, this blend tree basically takes 2 movement axes or directions, and it uses those 2 values, and depending on where those values are, like on this map or graph, you can see how our character is facing the right direction or like walking in the right direction. So like if I hit play, you can see this in action. If I press the A key or the A button or the left arrow or the left D-pad, whatever, horizontal is set to -1. And this works in all directions, so like A, D, W, and S. So our parameters for horizontal and vertical movement are functioning correctly because they should, because that is how I coded them. This is basically the script which manages the animations and the movement, alright? So I'm getting some movement directions in the X and Y direction based on input.getAxis for all horizontal and vertical. So this is from where the values -1, 0, and 1 are coming from, alright? And then I am using my animator component to set these values. Horizontal, in our animator controller, this parameter is automatically going to be set to the horizontal axis movement that we get over here, because the update loop runs many times per second depending on your frame rate. Alright, so that is the easiest explanation. So this will happen again and again as often as your FPS allows. So like we are able to control these parameters which were inside our animator controller through the script, which is very handy. And then these values are in turn being used inside this blend tree to make our character move. Alright, so like not really move, but like change into the right animation. So movement is still going to be handled using this function right here, like in the fixed update method, which is called a fixed number of times. So this is like frame rate independent, and this one is frame rate dependent. Alright, so this one will be functioning the same way on every single computer, which is the right way to do movement or physics calculations, whereas getting input should be done as many times as possible in a second. So that is all done in the update method. Alright, so in my fixed update method, which is the best one for physics and movement, I'm calling the function move position on my rigid body, which is attached to my player character. And then like all I'm doing is that I'm taking the current position and I'm adding the movement vector that we got from, you know, like our input, normalizing it to make sure that like it doesn't really, you know, like add up to like an increase in the movement velocity when moving diagonally, but that doesn't matter because I'm going to remove diagonal movement entirely in the future. Multiplied by the move speed. The move speed is basically just an arbitrary value to kind of like like multiply with our movement direction to get a longer vector to actually move and appear as if we are moving on the screen, and then multiplied by time.fixed delta time. This is basically the time elapsed since the last frame was rendered. So all in all, we are basically normalizing how much we move regardless of our frame rate. So this will move the same amount whether you are on 30 FPS or 120 FPS, which is very good. Alright, so enough yapping, but you can basically begin to understand how movement is working and why it isn't probably as easy as you might have expected. So like once we make our way outside of Cindy's home, we are able to smoothly transition with a very nice fade transition into the outside town area. And right now, like nothing here is really interactable, so yeah, all of this will be fixed very soon, the collisions, everything, you know, but like I really worked hard for this, and like I'm gonna be building some very good looking areas, and like in the near future all of these things will have collisions, and you will be able to actually enter every single building. So right now, even though we went outside from Cindy's house and we spawned here, we can't really go back. So yeah. And this transition right here, this wasn't easy to do. I mean, it is easy, but it is like, yeah, basically I had to use a singleton design pattern to create a fade manager object that basically manages how to fade when a scene changes or like loads into another. and that is basically done using an empty game object called a fade manager, which houses a canvas, which in turn has a fade image, which is basically like a black colored sprite which covers the whole screen, and the alpha of it, or the opacity, basically fades from from light to dark and then from dark to light again. And that is going to happen whenever we touch this like these stairs. Alright, so these stairs basically have the scene transition script, and the target scene name is overworld. So like whenever we touch this, this script will transition or change the current scene from Cindy house interior to the overworld. And for doing that, I developed this scene transition script, which is basically like a reusable component, which is going to allow us to smoothly transition between scenes using only the target scene name within the inspector without coding it every single time for every single transition, and just place this script onto any object and make any kind of transition work. And this makes things way more optimized and good. All it is doing is that it is basically detecting if the player enters a trigger which is placed on this game object, like these stairs. So like whenever the player touches that, we will call the fade out function, and then we will change the scene, and then the fade in function. So the fade controller is a singleton, which I've defined over here. Alright, so basically this fade controller is a very special type of object which is only instantiated once, and to be able to use it from any object in any scene in any script, basically we don't destroy it on load. So like whenever a scene transitions from one scene to the other, this object stays in our scene and it is accessible, usable, using a direct reference. Alright, like I can just say fade controller dot instance because it is a public static variable, and that is basically going to allow us to fade smoothly whenever we change a scene. And I use this very nicely in my scene transition script, which is basically going to be attached or like on top of any object on which I need to check collision with the player to change the scene, like these stairs. So basically these stairs are gonna check if the player is colliding with the trigger like that is on top of it, and if the player is in fact colliding with this trigger, then we start a transition, and the transition basically like not only loads the next scene, but it also calls our fade controller singleton, that one instance, to fade out and then fade in smoothly. And yeah, that took a lot of thinking to do, but this is one of the first times that I've actually used a singleton properly, and I've actually understood what a design pattern actually does. So this is a very huge achievement for me. Might not be for you, but it is for me. So all in all, the end result is that we can walk up to these stairs and voila, a very nice transition, and we get outside. Ain't that crazy? So next up, I'm working on some character animations for Cindy, which are right here. So some simple sword animations, and these will be used to fight some basic enemies, and that is going to be my next goal for today. I'll be finishing these animations and, you know, making these collisions actually work, making some more interiors, like making some more interactions, you know, like being able to read the sign and having some actual areas to explore, because right now there is nothing. Alright, like I can just go here and I get lost forever. So this is basically it for Ashenheart for now. No music, no nothing, but we have made some insane developments in a very small amount of time, so I'm sure that even if my semester project is very basic and very small scale, the final product, the final rendition of Ashenheart, which will be released in, I think, a month, it is going to be amazing, and you all will enjoy it very much. Just stay tuned. I will add some very good UI, very good music, very good animations, more characters, NPCs, interactions, and a very nice and captivating story. So, alright, so till then, I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.